chimpanzee. Of all the great apes, chimpanzees are perhaps the most studied and the most familiar. They live across a broad stretch of sub-Saharan Africa, from Senegal in the west to Tanzania in the east, mostly in tropical forests and woodland areas. Chimpanzees are highly social, living in communities that can range from a handful of individuals to over 100. Within those communities, complex hierarchies form, maintained through alliances, grooming, and sometimes aggression. Males compete intensely for status, and a dominant male can hold his position for years. What makes chimpanzees particularly striking is their cognitive ability. They use tools with a kind of casual precision that still surprises researchers. A chimpanzee will select a specific stick, strip it of leaves, and insert it into a termite mound to fish out insects. They pass these techniques on to younger members of the group, which means chimpanzees have something genuinely resembling culture. Different communities have different habits, different calls, different ways of doing things. They also display a wide emotional range, forming deep bonds with family members and showing signs of grief when a companion dies. Chimpanzees share roughly 98.7% of their DNA with humans, which makes every observation of their behavior feel like a quiet look into our own past. Bonobo. Bonobos are sometimes called the forgotten ape, and that label, while unfair, reflects just how long they lived in chimpanzee's shadow. They were only recognized as a separate species in the 1920s, and even today, many people have never heard of them. Bonobos live exclusively in the Democratic Republic of Congo, south of the Congo River, in dense lowland rainforest. That river acts as a natural barrier, and it is one reason bonobos and chimpanzees evolved so differently despite being close relatives. Physically, bonobos are slightly more slender than chimpanzees, with longer limbs, a flatter face, and a more upright posture when walking. But the differences in behavior are where things get genuinely interesting. Bonobo society is female-led. Females form strong alliances with one another and use those bonds to keep aggression in check. Social tension, whether from competition over food or unfamiliar group members, is routinely diffused through physical contact and social bonding rather than conflict. This gives bonobo communities a noticeably calmer atmosphere compared to chimpanzee groups. Bonobos are also highly expressive, with a wide vocal range and a sensitivity to others' emotions that researchers have documented in careful detail. They share food willingly, even with strangers, which is a behavior that places them among the most pro-social animals ever observed. Gorilla. Gorillas are the largest living primates on Earth, and everything about them reflects that scale. A fully grown male, known as a silverback for the distinctive patch of grey hair that develops across his back with age, can weigh over 200 kilograms. Despite their size, gorillas are almost entirely herbivorous, spending most of their day moving slowly through the forest, feeding on leaves, stems, bark, and fruit. They live in Central and Eastern Africa, divided into two species, the Western gorilla and the Eastern gorilla, each with two subspecies. The mountain gorilla, a subspecies of the Eastern gorilla, lives in the high-altitude forests of the Virunga Mountains, straddling the borders of Rwanda, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. These are among the most closely watched wild animals on the planet, partly because their population has historically been so small and vulnerable. Gorillas live in family groups led by a dominant silverback who makes decisions about where the group travels, mediates disputes, and protects members from threats. They are not naturally aggressive toward humans, but they will stand their ground when they feel threatened, using vocalizations, chest beating, and displays of size to warn off intruders. Underneath that formidable exterior, gorillas are gentle and attentive within their families. Mothers carry infants for months, and silverbacks have been observed playing carefully with young gorillas in ways that reveal a capacity for patience and restraint. Humans belong to the great ape family, and while that classification is sometimes treated as surprising, the anatomy and genetics make it undeniable. Like all great apes, humans have no tail, a large brain relative to body size, and a skeleton built for flexible, dexterous movement. What separates humans from the other apes is not any single dramatic feature, but a cluster of traits that, taken together, produce something unlike anything else in the animal kingdom. The brain is the most obvious factor. Human neural architecture supports language, abstract reasoning, long-term planning, and the ability to construct shared systems of meaning, things like laws, mathematics, and art. But equally important is bipedalism. Walking upright on two legs frees the hands entirely, and over deep evolutionary time, that freedom contributed to tool use, construction, and eventually the kind of technology that now shapes every ecosystem on the planet. Humans are also unusual in how long childhood lasts. A human child is dependent on adults for far longer than any other ape, which creates an extended window for learning and social development. This long dependency is linked to another distinctive trait, the depth and complexity of human social bonds. Humans form communities that extend far beyond genetic relatives, cooperating with strangers on scales that no other primate approaches. The modern human species, Homo sapiens, has existed for roughly 300,000 years, but the civilizations, cities, and global networks built in just the last few thousand years represent a pace of change that has no parallel in the natural world. Orangutan. Orangutans are the only great apes found outside of Africa. They live on the islands of Borneo and Sumatra in Southeast Asia, in tropical and subtropical rainforests that are among the most biodiverse on Earth. The word orangutan comes from the Malay and Indonesian words for forest person, and the name captures something real. There is a quality of quiet intelligence to them that observers consistently remark on. Orangutans are large, reddish-brown apes with distinctively long arms that can span up to 2 meters from fingertip to fingertip. They spend most of their lives in the trees, moving through the forest canopy with slow, deliberate grace. Unlike African great apes, orangutans are mostly solitary. Adult males, particularly dominant flanged males who develop wide cheek pads and a prominent throat pouch, maintain large home ranges and rarely tolerate other adult males nearby. Females raise offspring largely alone, and the bond between a mother and her young is one of the longest in the animal kingdom. Young orangutans may stay close to their mothers for up to 8 years. Orangutans are highly inventive. In the wild, they have been observed using leaves as umbrellas, fashioning tools to extract seeds from hard-shelled fruit, and building elaborate sleeping nests each night in the forest canopy. Their learning is observational and patient, which is part of why captive orangutans have been able to acquire quite complex skills when given the opportunity. Both the Bornean and Sumatran species are critically endangered, primarily due to habitat loss from palm oil expansion and deforestation. Siamang. The Siamang is the largest of the lesser apes, and it occupies a distinct place among the Gibbon family. It lives in the forests of the Malay Peninsula and the island of Sumatra, sharing its range in some areas with smaller Gibbon species. At a glance, the Siamang stands out immediately. It is significantly bigger than other gibbons, with jet-black fur and a large bare gular sac at its throat that can inflate to the size of its head. That throat sac is central to one of the most defining features of Siamang life, its call. Siamangs are loud in a way that genuinely carries through dense forest. Mated pairs perform coordinated duets each morning, a sequence of booming calls and whoops that can be heard over a kilometer away. These duets serve multiple purposes, reinforcing the pair bond, advertising territory, and signaling the pair's presence to neighbors. Siamangs form long-term pair bonds and raise their young together, with fathers playing an unusually active role in carrying and caring for infants, which is relatively rare among primates. They are brachiators, swinging through the trees, arm over arm, with speed and efficiency, but they move somewhat more slowly than smaller gibbons due to their greater mass. Like all apes, Siamangs have no tail and have a more complex brain structure than old-world monkeys. They feed primarily on leaves and fruit, and their large body size allows them to digest tougher plant material than smaller species can manage. Gibbon. Gibbons are the most acrobatic of all the apes, and watching one move through the forest canopy makes every other form of primate locomotion look slow and clumsy by comparison. There are around 20 recognized species of gibbon, distributed across the forests of South and Southeast Asia, from northeastern India and southern China down through the Malay archipelago. They are small to medium-sized apes, typically weighing between 5 and 8 kilograms, with extremely long arms relative to their body size and hook-like hands that allow them to brachiate, swing hand over hand through the trees at remarkable speed. A gibbon can cover up to 15 meters in a single swing and travel through the forest at speeds that outpace most animals on the ground below. Gibbons are famously vocal. Like Siamangs, they sing, producing elaborate territorial calls at dawn that echo through the forest. In many species, males and females have distinct calls, and mated pairs sing together in coordinated sequences that are genuinely musical in their structure. Gibbons are monogamous for the most part and live in small family groups consisting of a pair and their offspring. The family occupies a defined territory, and the morning songs help keep neighboring groups at a respectful distance. Different species carry different coat colors. Some are pale cream or silver, others are dark brown or black. And in some species, the male and female look completely different from one another. The LR gibbon, the Hulock gibbons, and the crested gibbons are among the more well-known species, each adapted to slightly different forest environments across the region. Nearly all gibbon species are threatened by habitat loss, with deforestation and fragmentation steadily reducing the continuous forest they need to survive.